Okay, I am very late in filming this video, like 4 weeks late, but I want to take the time here to do my promised Q&A thank you video for hitting 350,000 subscribers on YouTube. Yeah, it's still completely mind-blowing that now I think I'm up to close to 365,000 people subscribed to my YouTube channel. It's still absolutely unreal to me. But I posted like a month ago, hey, I'm about to hit 350,000, drop your questions and I'll pick some at random to answer to say thank you. For this one, anything was on the table. Ask me whatever you want. That post got like 600 comments, so obviously I can't answer all of the questions, but I want to start with the number one question that I got from folks. So not a random pick, but it was asked so many times I want to answer it. The question was, how did you get into permaculture? I know I talk a lot about politics right now, and I'm looking forward to the day when we no longer live under a fascist regime and I can get back to talking about permaculture, design, and philosophy far more than I do now. Although I will say my permaculture ethics and principles shape all of my opinions and they shape every single video that I make. I was introduced to permaculture in 2 different ways when I was 18 years old back in 1997. Yeah, I'm no spring chicken. One was that I read an issue of Mother Earth News at the local library, and it had an article on permaculture. And I had always been very, very interested in gardening. My grandpa in Indiana had a huge garden and I always admired it. He grew just like the most massive tomatoes and strawberries and beautiful grape arbor with Concord grapes. And I'd love going to visit him and hanging out in his garden. He had basically there was like no lawn left. Every part of his yard had been taken over by garden, mostly for growing fruits and veggies. And I was always like, I want that. I've always been interested in food justice. I've always been interested in feeding hungry people, growing our own food, definitely in cooking and preserving, etc., etc. I also always was a really big environmentalist, and permaculture has 3 ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share. And the emphasis is, how do we build regenerative communities of people that have a healing relationship with the planet? So it's not sustainable living, it's regenerative living. It's how do we work to restore the landscapes, the ecosystems that we've devastated, and how do we learn to interact with them, not as if we were separate from nature, but understanding that we are part of nature and that everything is connected, and we actually could have relationships with our neighbors, and our communities could have relationships with the land that are healing and, again, like help us have a higher quality of life, a more abundant quality of life. And the second place I heard about permaculture, and that really got me in my deep dive, was we had this environmental action group in college. And there was a focus at the time on learning about sustainable agriculture. And I was like, yes, this very much interests me. And this is way back when the concept of a CSA, a community supported agriculture group, where you sign up to get a share of whatever the farmer produces, that was not as commonly understood in the US as it is now. It was not as popular as it is now. And I was really intrigued at this idea of, hey, how do I take a risk with the farmer? How do I support their business and say, I'll buy a share of whatever it is that you grow this year? That seemed far more equitable to me. It seemed far more sustainable. And yeah, it really sparked my interest. And so very quickly, right, if you start learning about sustainable agriculture, you're going to tip into permaculture, especially small scale, like CSA, supporting small family farms. And from there, I got involved in the Women Food and Agriculture Network in Iowa. And that was kind of it. I kind of took off with permaculture. Okay, question 2. This one is at random. Are you vegan? If not, how do you justify not being vegan? No, I'm an omnivore. In fact, we raise chickens and ducks. I'm a beekeeper. We raised turkeys in our backyard here in Portland, Oregon, for the freezer, for the table. We buy half a cow from a local farmer every year, grass-fed, grass-finished. We bought a lamb earlier this year from a local farmer. Sometimes we buy half a hog from a local farmer. I don't actually think that being vegan is more sustainable. I don't actually think that it is in alignment with my permaculture values. I understand that there are people who do vegan permaculture, and I never want to tell somebody else how to eat. I do want to respect other people's food cultures, and I do want to respect the ecosystems in which other people produce their food, and understand that veganism is an ideological choice. It is not the more sustainable choice. It's not necessarily the more culturally appropriate choice. In fact, it frequently is not. I end up arguing with vegans a lot on the internet. They don't like my position at all. And that's okay. People don't have to agree with everything that I stand for. I'm sure, much like you, my choices around what I eat, what I put into my body, are deeply personal. They are shaped by my ethics. They are shaped by a lot of thought and consideration. I care very much about animal welfare. That's why I don't purchase factory farmed meat. It's part of the reason that we raised our own turkeys. It's part of the reason that we keep our own chickens for eggs. I'm always happy to engage thoughtfully on this topic. I just feel like it's difficult to have that conversation without it devolving into a lot of rhetoric and a lot of arguing. So I'll leave it there for now. Okay, next random question. Lots of questions about actual permaculture and food topics this time. Do you grow mushrooms in your garden or just fruits and veggies? I grow two kinds of mushrooms in my garden. I grow Stropharia rugosa annulata, which is called the wine cap mushroom. It is a gourmet mushroom that is very large. I'll cut in a picture here. I think it tastes a little bit like peanuts when you cook it. I like to dry them and grind them into a powder that I mix with other things. My kids don't like them as much as shiitakes, but I do think they're quite good for marinating and grilling. They also like part sun. They come up in the paths, right? Obviously they're feeding on wood chips, and the mycelium is just, if you lift up any of my paths in my garden, it's just like full of mycelium. And so I get these big Stropharia mushrooms after a rain, like right in the path in the sunshine. The other thing I have in my garden is I have morels. I bought morel spawn and I seeded it everywhere. And then also I get a lot of Morchella importuna, which they just come up randomly when I get loads of wood chips. The spores are in them. And so I'll get them coming up in my garden when I get a new load of wood chips. I love morels. I love morels with eggs. I love them breaded and cooked in a lot of butter. So good. And we also live in a part of the country with really good foraging, both for multiple species of morels, including if you go up into some of the areas where we've had a lot of burns, there's a lot of burn morels that you can get. And then also we live in a part of the country where you can get good lobster mushrooms, you can get spring kings, really good boletes here in Oregon. I wish I had more time. We used to do a lot more hiking and mushroom hunting before the election. I'm not actually an expert on mycology by any means, and so I'm really careful that the only mushrooms I will harvest in the wild are those that I'm like 1,000,000% sure that I can identify them, and then also identify all their lookalikes and also tell the difference. Oregon's a really good place to hunt for matsutake mushrooms. I don't forage for them because the lookalike can kill you. So I understand that matsutakes have that beautiful, wonderful, unique smell. I don't feel comfortable foraging for them because I don't want to mix them up with amanitas. In fact, I don't buy them foraged either because I've seen too many posts in too many mushroom groups where people will have their tray and be like, oh, look at all my matsutakes. And some of them are not. I'm not fucking around like that. I will go chanterelle hunting. I'm very confident in identifying chanterelles and how to differentiate them from, bed shitters. Okay, next question. What are your thought processes on deciding what to plant in your garden? That's an excellent question. So I have a couple different criteria. One, what does our family like to eat? Number two, what grows well in my climate and doesn't have a lot of pest or disease pressure? I want things that are easy to grow. Those are probably my two main criteria. I love apricots. They're probably my favorite tree fruit. You can't grow them here without a lot of care. They're prone to a lot of fungal diseases. I had an apricot tree that had terrible shot leaf disease. And I was like, why am I trying to make fetch happen here, right? Why am I trying to force this tree to grow? I love the fruit, but I don't want to have to spray it. I don't want to have to baby it. I'm tired of it struggling here. I took it out and I put in a Desert King fig. It has had no issues, no pests, no diseases. It produces huge crops of fruit. Low effort on my part. I want to save labor and increase my yield. So I want to pick things that do well in my climate, are hardy, not going to be fussy, although I do have a couple apple varieties that are real divas. To me, there are some fruits that are special enough that I'm willing to put in the extra work. I have moved things around quite a bit the last couple years as our summers are getting hotter. I do think about planning for a climate change garden. So for example, I took out a couple of my blueberries that were struggling with sunburn summer after summer, and I put in June berries, which do much better. Oh, the other thing I would say too, I want to grow something that I find to be delicious and that maybe is hard for me to get in the store. For example, kiwi berries, or gosh, I grow so many different kinds of berries that are difficult to get in the store or are very expensive in the store. So I want to go for excellent flavor, much cheaper to grow than to purchase in the store. Our whole family enjoys eating them, or at least enough members of my family that I can justify giving space to that plant in the garden. And then I want something that is going to do well in my climate. Low pest, low disease pressure. Okay, I'm coming up on 10 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you. First of all, thank you for 350,000 subscribers. It's just, I can't express how unbelievable that is that y'all care to listen to me yap. And number two, thank you for your questions. Maybe I should try and find more time to talk about permaculture and gardening because, gosh, it's really what I want to be talking about. Anyway, thanks, y'all.